Okay, so it's time to complete this circuit, or add to it at least, and get all these potentiometers working and running this tricolor LED. But before I do, I'm going to take just a brief moment here to kind of explain what I hastily threw together in the last video. Some of it I hope is quite obvious, all right? So setting up the pin mode, a very important step if I want to be able to drive one of these ports as an output to turn on and off the LED. I created a function. I called it dim LED. I called it from the loop, so it's going to be trapped in there. And what I've done is simply gathered the data, an analog read from pin 5 right over here, A5 I should say. And whatever value that is has been stored into this variable red LED. And this is really kind of the blending of two different functions, okay? So I've got this map portion of it, and the map, of course, is going to take the data, the input data, and compress it or rearrange or stretch it for that matter to fit in with a particular set of values that I desire. Now I'm going to need a value of between 0 and 255 to drive the analog right, okay, to dim and brighten this light. So that's going to be these values here. And you recall when we did an analog read with it, we got values anywhere between 49 and 1023. So that's my minimum, that's my maximum, and I scale it between 0 and 255. And this, of course, is the data that's been gathered to do it. Then I've taken this function here and linked it into this function, which, of course, is the one that's going to output that value, that 8-bit value that ends up being between 0 and 255, and that's going to do it to pin 9. Okay? So you can imagine that adding these other two LEDs is really not a big deal. We can do it by just copying and pasting. Okay, so if I do this and I paste it twice more, and you recall that I'm running it on pin 9, 10, and 11. So let's make that 9, 10, and 11. And let's copy and paste this 2 more times. And in which case, I know that 9 is going to be my red one, the 10 is going to be green, and the 11 is going to be blue. So we'll just stick with the same sort of theme. Blue. And we want to make this 10. And this 11, and we want to map the green one, and we want to map the blue one, and they all had the same basic ranges, so I think this should actually work for us fairly well. If I were to go ahead and load this up, I hope that I'm going to get it to work and we'll be able to dim all 3 LEDs. So it's taking a moment to do that. First load, here we go. And let's see what we get. So first thing I'll do is I'll turn them all into the off position. And then I will turn them up. And look, it didn't work. Why? Because look, I didn't change this value. So this is A4 and this is A3. So let me load that one more time. And hopefully this time it's going to work for us. And we're done uploading, and I can turn this one, I can dim the red, I can do this one, I can dim the blue, the green, and this one's the blue. So therefore, if I blend these colors, I can make that 16.8 million different color variations, and it works quite well. So let me pause this for a moment and clean it up, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've just cleaned up this code a little bit, and I'm going to post it. But all I've really done is add some comments and actually more appropriately labeled a variable or two. So first thing I did was create some globals, the red LED pin, green, and blue LED pins, and identified them as pins 9, 10, and 11. And then just to make it a little easier to read, I went ahead and carried those variables through into my setup where I've defined the direction of the port, and then once again called upon them in the actual function in the analog write portion so that we know which is the red, green, and blue. I've also labeled it here in comments and tried to explain a little bit about what's actually happening. And you can see that it works just fine, so I can dim the red, dim the green, dim the blue, blend the colors together, and make all the different colors. And again, I apologize, it's much cooler when you look at it in person, but the camera just tends to saturate shortly after turning on the light. So there you go. I hope that was informative, and invariably I will see you again soon.